Hi everyone, welcome to day 42 of Adorned with Dignity. Today we're talking about the key to happiness and self-worth. And in this generation, this has become such a problem in our time. I've stated before that we've become a generation and a culture of wannabes, but the problem is that we don't know what we want to be. And once we think we know, that narrative changes based upon mainstream society. And that's the problem with following after the Goyim instead of what Hashem has told us. So we become inevitably like this wave that goes up and down, and it changes with every new season that comes out. So it says that one of the most powerful tactics of the Yetzirah is to scare us with a term that invokes anxiety and fear in today's society, and that's peer pressure. And he tricks us with the illusionary concern of what will people think. And as we know, as I've stated before, that, we have adopted the idea and we've accepted that perception is reality. Even though the amass could be a true work of fiction, nevertheless, if we project successfully this narrative of success, then people will believe it. So it states that in order to combat this, we need to first build our inner happiness and self-esteem and self-confidence. And by incorporating the teachings that we will discuss, our lives will be transformed, and we will experience true bliss, tranquility, and self-respect. And again, the problem with trying to be all things to all people is that in the end, you're the one that loses out because, not only did you disappoint Hashem, but I think most of all, you disappointed yourself once you get that realization. And, I had this problem very early on. And I got to a point where I was just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. And finally, I just said, I'd rather be hated for who I really am than to be loved for who I was pretending to be. And once I started making that my narrative, I found that people just genuinely accepted and loved me for who I was. And they really got the time. They took the time to get to know me, as opposed to just making a snap judgment based upon what they were seeing through my external appearance. So it says main cause of stress in today's society, and it's brought down that the generation before Mashiach will be a generation of externals, where a person will be measured by external factors. And we see this openly today when people tend to measure their self-worth by superficial factors, such as the status of their job, their external appearance, their beauty, their level of popularity, the extravagance of their simchas, like those big parties, their homes, what they're driving, you can go on and on. And a lot of times we see this, this isn't just something that is prevalent in the Goyim. Sometimes we see this even with Yidden. But for people in general, we see this generally where they start out and they like to say, I'm the doctor so-and-so, or I'm head of this department, or, I am descended from so-and-so, and it happens to be a great Rav, or, I'm so-and-so in the shul, I'm this pillar of community. A lot of times people tend to lead out with this, and they make this one of the first things in their narrative when they're meeting somebody for you to know. And I think that we come to the point where we do it so subconsciously that we don't even realize that we're doing it. And a lot of times we do this and we're putting out, again, this perception of, in order for people to respect us. And I think sometimes we don't realize that we're dancing around what the MS is in order to distract you from the fact that there's something about us that we don't want you to know, because we've also accepted the narrative that if you knew this, then maybe you wouldn't want to be close to us. And again, so there's all these narratives that are going around. But, with perception being the reality, the problem is that what we're putting out, this false perception, even if it's true, but, listen, you could truly be the doctor of this and the head of this great, hospital. But that's not who you are, right? I remember, not to make it sound like externals, but there was a time when I had a very big position in the corporate world. And I remember I was going to a shiur, and it was like in the middle of the shiur, I'm getting all these calls, because, and this had to do with government, and I'm getting all these calls, and, I was like, oh, I'm really sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so busy, I'm so sorry. I remember the Rav saying to me, he goes, you're not your job, right? And it was funny because that simple sentence, it's like he devastated my world. What? What do you mean I'm not my job? Mazepito, what are you talking about? What do you mean I'm not my job? And I got to tell you that with those words, he devastated my whole narrative, and it just changed everything. And from there, it was like, wow, what am I? Like, what am I? If I'm not my job, like, what else is left? After 9 to 5, like, what else is left? So it was very earth-shattering, and I'm sure for a lot of people, they probably have the same reaction. And Harav Mitzayah Solomon Shlita reveals that even our avodas Hashem has become external. People are driven to perform deeds because they look good instead of because they, bring an inner desire to Hashem. And Harav Avraham Waxman Shlita suggests that this is a mentality and the main cause of stress in our society. Unfortunately, this outlook has seeped into our midst from the culture of Yavan. And Yavan was a Greek culture that introduced the attitude of valuing ourselves for our externals. And they were of the mindset that you are what you achieve, and your level of success is measured by how you compare to the next person. Hence the beginning of the phrase "keeping up with the Joneses." So that phrase has been around for a while. It just started out perhaps in a different. It's like we're all saying the same thing. We're all trying to keep up with the Joneses. And Harav Yerachem Levavetz Shlita makes it clear that this mindset of Yavan is what's destroying our peace of mind and affects a person in a way that he can't be at ease with himself. Because again, we said that you'll always be up and down like a wave. Because the truth is, no matter how much you're working, there'll always be someone that the Yetzirah has no problem to bring in front of you that is always more successful, more prettier, smarter, whatever that blank is, you can fill it in. The Yetzirah have no problem bringing that person in front of you so that you can compare your life to them. And this is that mindset of Yavan. This is where it's coming from. Instead of just saying that the only mark you have to hit is that one that is set by Hashem for your life. But it says the key to happiness, as Harav Levovitz explains, that the only way to achieve true peace of mind is to constantly remember what is my mission in life. And we know that every neshama yearns to please Hashem. So as if a person who works on internalizing that he can serve Hashem happily in every situation, yet if he makes external factors his goal in life, then he will never be relaxed. And as soon as circumstances change, he will feel broken. And we know this. If a woman makes wealth her goal in life, as soon as her financial status changes, she's going to feel lost. If a beauty is the focus of her life and she begins to age, when she sees someone, if she sees any slight imperfection or appearance, she'll be distraught. And I'd like to add to that, if she sees someone younger and prettier, it's going to throw her into a tizzy, right? And so if she values her level of popularity, then when she's in a situation where she didn't receive adequate recognition, she will be miserable. And we see this too. We'll see gals, if they've put on their best outfit, if you don't compliment it, whoo, my goodness. Wow, you better watch out, and it's like, if you make an announcement like, my child is getting married, then you better have like all these compliments and oh great, blah blah blah, and even no matter what it is, I mean, even for myself, it's like if I put out a great shiur and 10,000 people don't like, oh my God, that was so amazing, Devorah, Esther. I was like, I have to also be careful. We all have to be careful. This is something that really is so rooted into our culture. But ironically, there's this great story that comes out of Gan Eden, right? And it really surrounds the letter Hey. And the letter Hey, we see that whenever Hashem, I don't want to say whenever, Hashem, when he changed Sarah's name, he put the letter Hey and it was at the end. You see, Rivka, there's a Hey, there's at the end. Leah, there's a Hey at the end. And at this point, when we see Sarah, when she gets that Hey, she was able to have a child. Now, Rachel did not have the Hey, and it said that her maidservant had two. And when she gave over one to Rachel at that point, then she was also able to give life. And, but we see something very funny. So while that letter Hey, if it's at the end, it comes to symbolize something good and life. But when the Hey comes to the beginning, it shows something different. So the Hey at the end is coming to symbolize spirituality and those things, that they're, really on a higher level. But Adam says something very interesting, very well known. And when Hashem questions him, what's the thing that he says? Chaisha. Chaisha. The hey is in the beginning. And when the hey is at the beginning, it comes to denote this materialistic quality. So if a woman leads off with the hey in the beginning, with this materialistic quality, it brings on destruction. And we've seen what the outcome, we're living the consequences of that decision. But when the hey is at the end, it's coming to, bring on the spirituality, because, this materialistic quality is in check. So it's very interesting. I think what's more interesting is this is all surrounding one letter, which is K. So very interesting. So a very, very deep concept that we have to really, I think women have to internalize in this generation, that we shouldn't be the chaisha. We should be more like the ashes, right? The chay at the end. And says, so we must strengthen our emunah that all these external factors are given to us by Shem. Thus, if we change, thus, if they change, we need not feel inferior or loss of sense of self-worth, since we know that this is coming directly from Hashem, and our respect should not only be connected. I'm going to get it together, guys. Our self-respect should be only connected to our inner value. And it says, in truth, that internalizing this is a lifelong avodah, yet the inner work pays off. And through this, our lives will be transformed, and we will no longer be enslaved to our egos or to social pressures, and we'll finally be free to express true tranquility and happiness. So it says, implementing the proper attitudes is, how do we incorporate this way of thinking to our daily lives? We have to make a conscious effort to replace irrational thoughts with more constructive and Torah geared thoughts. And again, sometimes I think with all the extravagance in our world, in our lives, I think it sets us up to be like the best dramatic actress of our time. And a lot of times we'll see this, like when we say, oh my gosh, I have nothing to wear, because we've seen somebody else with something, with this great outfit, and all of a sudden we have nothing to wear. Mind you, our closets are filled with nothing to wear. I used to say that to my husband all the time. He said, you have a closet full of nothing to wear. And, and also times too, when you say, let's say you see somebody younger than you, and then you look in the mirror and you see this one, Bemet, it's so tiny, the wrinkle, you'd have to put a microscope on it, but you've seen it somehow because the Yetzirah makes it like it was this gaping hole in your face. And all of a sudden it's like, I can't face the world, and it's like you're so dramatic over it. So, this is something that we also have to check. And this is coming from the Yetzirah. We have to check this because the bottom line is that eventually we're all going to age. Be'ezrat Hashem, we're all going to be zochet to reach that time. But we have to remember that our self-worth is not measured by the outside factors. There comes a time where you have to retire. There comes a time where, you may not be as rich as you used to be. There comes a time where, or everything changes, because this too shall pass. We know that everything passes. So if we know that everything is coming from Hashem, and that our self-worth is not diminished because those externals have changed, we're going to have a much happier life. And it says, attaining true self-respect and inner happiness. And self-respect is a Torah obligation. As the Gemara teaches, that a person is obligated to say that the world was created for me. And Rashi adds that I'm worth the entire world. So you should know that the world was created entirely for you. That doesn't mean that it's all about you. But you should really see this. Hashem created everything that's coming into your peripheral, into your full view, that was given to you by Hashem, and everything has come together just for that moment. And so it says, how do we attain true self-respect? And it says, by constantly reminding ourselves that all our talents, gifts, and external situations are from Hashem, and that even if they change, it does not reflect our self-worth. The less dependent we are on external qualities and circumstances, the more self-esteem we will have. And in this way, we'll begin to feel a renewed sense of confidence, and we will be concerned about impressing Hashem as opposed to our peers. Thus, we will be in a constant state of true peace and happiness regardless of our circumstances. And it ends off with a note, which was adapted. It was an exercise that was adapted by a speech by Rabbi Avraham Wachsman Shlita, and it was saying that, and I'm going to put it in a nutshell, but basically what it was saying is that because we've subconsciously made this narrative of trying to keep up with the Joneses and constantly, like it's almost like we become this harsh taskmaster. You're not pretty enough. You're not successful enough. You're not rich enough. You're not this. You're not that. that because we've made that a subconscious recording that plays over and over, that's our narrative, that we have to now consciously put in the narrative that we are not our externals, and that we, our self-worth is not dependent on our accomplishments or our wealth or anything like that. And we have to continually repeat the fact that we are an entire world and we have immense value regardless of those externals. And we have to say this consciously, and it has to be at this point more times than we've said this narrative. So for a lot of us, this is going to take some time because we've probably grown up with this narrative. And so if you're like me, I'm in my 40s. So, I mean, that's that many years that I've had this narrative playing out. And so it's going to take a long time. Hopefully it won't take another 40 years. But I think that you have to know that it's not something that's going to happen overnight to change that narrative. And it's not one that you will always be successful in. But it's not something that you will always experience loss in either. There will be times of victory, and eventually, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll all get out on the other side. But I think that the narrative that we have to remember above all things is that we are bat melech. We are the daughters of a king, and with that comes a responsibility to act in that way. And so for some of us, we have to learn what that means, because being royal is not like being famous. So that's something that is very lost on our generation. But B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to, continue to learn, and He should help us all to reach that level. And that's it for today. And I hope we'll all be together again soon, B'ezrat Hashem.